Hey there, modern math teacher. Can we just take a second to think about the fact that it is May? You guys, we've made it. We're in the home stretch. I don't know about you and your district. Me and my district, we are done at the end of this month, and I'm here for it. And if you're not, don't worry. I'm still going to be here every week, giving you the real on what's happening every Tuesday live to help you in your classroom to get you from where you are right now all the way through the end of the school year. And as you know, we've always got something fun planned, some poolside PD for the summer, keeping it bite-sized, actionable, and fun. So things to look forward to. But for right now, happy May, happy Cinco de Mayo if you're listening to me in real time. And let's talk about projects, okay? All right, you guys. Thinking about projects, I know that you've had this experience with me, right? So you've picked a project, you've planned it, you're like, okay, this is going to be great. You're excited to do it. You talk to your students with it. And then when you go to roll it out, it is just a disaster. It totally flops. It misses the mark completely. Your students are confused. They don't take it seriously. The math just gets really lost inside of everything, and it just kind of feels chaotic. And maybe that left you walking away thinking like, all right, well, never mind. I don't have time for projects. That was a waste of my time, a waste of their time. Maybe we just don't do projects in my class. Okay. But here's the real truth. The problem isn't projects as a whole. The problem is how most projects are designed. So in today's episode, we are going to break that down. Why most math projects just don't work, what's actually going wrong with them, and how we can start fixing it without creating more work for you, because ain't nobody got time for that, friend. Okay. So let's think about this. Let's paint a picture. Okay. A lot of math projects look like this. You're going to create a poster, design a roller coaster, make a presentation to show me that this is better than that, right? And on the surface, those might seem like they're going to be engaging, right? But when you actually start working through them and watching your students go through them, you notice that, some students are doing the math and some are just decorating and some are completely lost and they're just kind of sitting there with their team like, well, group grade, we'll see how this goes, right? And the math part of it becomes optional. And that's where it fails, okay? And I'll be honest, you guys, I have totally been here with a project failure. If you've never heard my Mazer tag story, let me tell you what a flop it was, okay? It should have been a hit. It was designed by the PBL experts. It was hands-on. It was interactive. We were shooting with lasers. How could that not win in an Algebra 2 classroom, right? But the fact was, it didn't connect with my students. They completely lost sight of the math. The math didn't seem relevant as much as like, I just move this mirror and I do this and now I can shoot a laser and it's going to work. So, the idea was that the students were going to have to design and navigate that laser maze, thinking about angles, reflection, using trigonometry. I rolled it out and it was just chaos and cricket. And not the kind where you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. This is learning. This is where it gets messy. No, the kind where like your kids are just kind of playing around with the materials. They're totally off track. And others are just like trying to scramble to get it done, but they really don't know what's happening. And so they're kind of in panic mode too, right? And so the math was completely lost. And I just remember thinking like, what happened? Like this was designed by the best of the best. And this is not my first rodeo in a PBL unit. Like I know how to manage the classroom. And it looked engaging and it felt like it was going to be fun, but it wasn't meaningful at all. Okay. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And the next time I wanted to create a project, I had to think of something different. I knew I couldn't fix that exact lesson. I could not fix that exact project. That was a flop. We never went there again. But the next time I wanted to go into planning a project and designing it intentionally and differently. I wanted one that was going to be better suited for my students. So instead of having them focusing on building something, I wanted them to be thinking on the thinking, the reasoning, and the defending of their ideas. And that, you guys, came to light with the Change My Mind project. It was the best. You've seen those memes where the guy's sitting there at a table and it's got a white sign in front and it says something, something, something is true. Change my mind. Man, let me tell you what a hit this was in my classroom. My students ate this up, no crumbs. Okay. My students had to analyze their situation, make a claim, gather stats, use the stats to defend their reasoning, and then they had to critique each other's reasoning, and they got to argue. And let me tell you, I did this with a group that was predominantly male, and we had a lot of sports going on in there. So and so is the GOAT. Nope, Tom Brady is the GOAT. Nope, Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. And they're going back and forth, and they're using stats, and they're arguing, and they are analyzing, and they are defending, and the math was center stage. Okay, the engagement went up. The conversations were stronger. The vocab they were using was so much richer, and the math actually mattered. So where my lasers flopped, my meme challenge soared. And that was a huge moment for me. Seeing the engagement of what should have been fun, hands-on, we're playing with lasers, we're doing some cool math, was a failure. What was designed intentionally to incorporate my students' interests, that was a game changer. It showed me that it wasn't about making the math more fun. It's about making the thinking and the math more meaningful. This project was more engaging than the one that actually looked more fun, right? It was more engaging and more effective for them to gather stats and argue than it was for them to design super cool laser mazes. That looked fun. That was fun with no math going on. Fun and fluffy is what we call those. The other, active, engaging, effective, kick-ass. That's what we call that. And that's why I'm so careful now about what I really call a project in my classroom. Because honestly, not all projects are worth your time, okay? So let's talk about what's actually going on here and what's going wrong with most of these projects. Number one, they're not clearly connected to the math. Your students don't really understand why what they're learning matters in this situation, okay? They kind of hide the math inside of there, or the math becomes an extra that your students can do optionally, and that's not okay. Number two, a lot of the projects prioritize product over thinking and processes. Your students are focused on making something look good, designed well, instead of making sense of the math, right? And number three, they just weren't designed for your actual students. They're too big, they're too vague, they're not aligned with your classroom reality, okay? So what does work? If those three things are working against us in so many of the projects that you see out there, whether it's on Pinterest or TPT or just something that you've heard about from a friend, Instagram, TikTok, right? We want to think about what's actually going to work here. This is where I started shifting how I design my projects. Instead of starting with like, ooh, what would be a fun way to cover this? I started thinking about like, okay, what is the math that I really want my students to understand? And where does that show up in real life? Most importantly, my students' real life, right? We talked real, relevant, and rigorous. That relevance is key here, okay? And I needed to think about, what is the thinking and the critical reasoning? What do they actually need to figure out? So that's where I got my 3 R's. It has to be real. It has to be relevant. It has to be rigorous. Because when a project has all 3 of those components, your students are going to understand the purpose. The math is going to stay central and necessary for the project, and the engagement becomes a byproduct, not just the goal, okay? So let me give you a quick example. Instead of saying, let's design a roller coaster using quadratics, which sounds fun, but it's kind of vague, you could shift it to design a model that predicts how high and how far a rocket will travel and justify your decisions based on the data. Okay. Now your students are modeling, they're making decisions, they're explaining their thinking. It's the same math, but a different experience. And that's one of the reasons why I love the Rocket Project. Listen, my friends, my students may not all grow up and go become rocket scientists. I know that, right? But they all enjoy the Rocket Project because it's real math they can model and they can design with. They can, study how a water rocket works, look at the different designs, make decisions about it. They're trying to get one that goes highest, one that goes furthest. They're trying to track that data, explain their reasoning. Why did we design it with 3 fins instead of 4? How far did it go compared to somebody's who had a different one that was in there? Did I make a good design decision, right? Same math as if you just used quadratics to build a roller coaster on a poster or something, right? But completely different experience, okay? So here's what I want you guys to take away with today. You 100% do not need to scrap projects or stop using them. But you need to shift how you think about them and how you select them to use in your classroom. You need to start thinking about starting with the math, the most important part of it there, right? The math. Is it real? Is it relevant? Is it going to actually be necessary to do the math to do the project? Okay, that's the rigorous aspect. So start with the math, then the real world connection, then the structure of your project. Because once you start doing that, the next question is going to become, okay, well, so I've selected a good project, but how do I actually design something like that on my own? And that, my friends, is what I am best at. That is what I'm here and where we're going to go next time we chat together. Now, if you need help figuring out when to use a project versus when to just focus on practice in your classroom and how to start making these shifts without overcomplicating things, I've got a free guide for you. It is the Project or Practice Guide. You can grab it here in the show notes, you guys. Until next time, keep enjoying the sunshine and the gloriousness that is May. We're going to get through it together. And as always, you guys, keep it real.